Right, welcome back, fourth graders. So if you have not listened to my read aloud today, then you need to go back and do that before you watch this video. So today's video goes with day 2 for Tuesday, May 12th. So on here, you should have watched my read aloud, and now you're here to watch my reading lesson, and then you're going to go read the assigned chapters in your book and do the page in this packet that goes along with this. All right, so today, for reading, we are talking about this right here. So our goal today is to realize that a character's perspective is shaped by the times and his or her roles. All right. So there's a really important word in this sticky note here, and that is perspective. Right. And so, let's see, perspective is the way that a person views something. It's their point of view. So the way that you see something is your perspective. So if you think about maybe the time that you and your sibling have gotten in an argument, and one of you, maybe your sibling, goes and tells your parents about it, and the story that they're telling, you're like, that's not what happened. Like, I wasn't being mean. Right? And so that's your sibling's point of view is different than your point of view. You experienced that in different ways. Okay. So one example of a time when characters in our book had different perspectives was when the soldiers stopped the girls on the street at the beginning of the book, right? So think back about how the girls reacted to that event. And Anne-Marie and Ellen were very afraid of the soldiers. They were very polite and respectful because they knew that the soldiers were scary men. Kirsty was not afraid, though. She was rude to the soldiers, and when they tried to touch her, she got angry. She had a totally different perspective than Anne-Marie and Ellen. And when we think about why, we go back to that sticky note about the times and his or her roles. So first off, the times, right? So the girls in this period of time were afraid of those soldiers because of the invasion of Germany that was going on. So if we saw soldiers on the street today, we might not have the same fear that they did, because back in that time, there was a war going on, and they knew that those soldiers were not safe people. And then their roles as well. Kirsty is a little bit younger than the other girls, so she probably also doesn't understand how scary the soldiers are. The girls, Anne-Marie and Ellen, were alive when Denmark was invaded. They remember that time, and so they remember what it was like before. Well, Kirsty doesn't remember what life was like before those soldiers were there. So that's kind of their different perspectives of that situation. So this is the page that we are looking at today to fill out when you read your own book club book. So book club day 3, right? You are going to, while you're reading today, and it doesn't have to be from the part that you read today, it can be from any part of the book that you've read so far. You're going to think of a situation in your book where the characters reacted in different ways, right? And then you're going to tell me what that situation was, and you're going to tell me what characters had different perspectives in that situation and how they reacted differently. Okay, so we're going to do an example of this with Number the Stars. To do that, we have to go back and we have to look at some of the text. So we're going to look at a situation that I found in which 2 of the characters react differently. And it's this one right here. So I'll read it for you. You girls walk a different way to school tomorrow. Promise me, Anne-Marie. And Ellen will promise too. We will, Miss Rosen. But what does it matter? There are German soldiers on every corner. They will remember your faces, Miss Rosen said, turning in the doorway to the hall. It is important to be one of the crowd. Always be one of many. Be sure that they never have reason to remember your face. She disappeared into the hall and closed the door behind her. He'll remember my face, Mama, Kirsty announced happily, because he said I look like his little girl. He said I was pretty. If he is such a pretty little girl, why doesn't he go back to her like a good father? Mr. Hanson murmured, stroking Kirsty's cheek. Why doesn't he go back to his own country? Right, so this situation right here, I noticed that Miss Rosen and Kirsty have very different points of views of what is happening here. So remember, Miss Rosen is Ellen's mom. And so if we really think about that, you might realize that we learned today in chapter 3 that Miss Rosen is Jewish. And so we talked about how the soldiers were specifically targeting Jewish families. And so that is one reason that Miss Rosen has to be more afraid of these soldiers than Kirsty does, because they react very differently when Kirsty says, he'll remember my face. He said I look like his little girl. He said I was pretty. Kirsty seems to think that this is a good thing, while Miss Rosen thinks that this is very dangerous. And so, oh, I'm sorry, down here it's Miss Johansson. But both of the moms seem to be quite a bit more afraid. So yes, like I said, Miss Rosen is Jewish, and Miss Johansson is a mom. That's her role. Her role is to be taking care of her daughters. And so the way that she sees this is as more of a threat, whereas Kirsty thought that it was a positive thing. Age also plays a little bit of a factor here, because the moms, right, when you're an adult, you understand a lot more about what's happening in the world around you. And Kirsty is a young girl, and so she doesn't understand how serious the things that are happening around her are. So I have already filled this out on day 3's paper for you to take a look at, and you can use this while you are doing your own answer for your book club book as well. So I said the situation where the characters reacted differently was when Miss Rosen and Kirsty were talking about the guard calling Kirsty pretty. So Miss Rosen and Kirsty had different perspectives about the Jewish soldiers. Miss Rosen reacted with anger because she is Jewish and she's an adult, and so she understands more about how dangerous the soldiers are. While Kirsty is a child, so she doesn't understand how serious the situation is. So that is how they reacted differently and what their different perspectives were in that situation. So now you are going to go read your own book club book and the chapter that was assigned on your bright orange paper today. And you're going to read that, and then you're going to fill out this page in your packet with it. And it is something that you will talk about in your book club when you meet with your teacher on Friday. So have a great rest of your day, and I will see you next time. Bye, 4th graders.